Did you just get a new handgun? Or are you finally ready to get good at the one that you have? I wish I had this video when I got started in shooting pistols, so we're gonna break down the top 5 mistakes women make when shooting a handgun. Hey everyone, I'm Kenzie with Classic Firearms, and I'm here to talk to you about the 5 mistakes women make while shooting pistols. From the very first get-go, women do not have a good aggressive shooting stance. Whether you shoot isosceles triangle or maybe a lever stance, it's up to you. But when I talk about aggressivity, I really want women to get their feet planted, their knees bent. And women specifically, let's use our hips. I want you to get your hips forward, like pushed forward, stick your booty out, and that way you have a really aggressive shooting stance. What this does is if you're in recoil and maybe it kicks a little bit, that whole movement is going down your body. Where I see basically a lot of people make mistakes is they're kind of rigid, right? They're standing up straight, or that recoil starts pushing them back and they're now on the balls of their feet. So from the get-go, lean into it, knees bent, aggressive, okay? Women, we're protectors, we're kind of more kind-natured. So when I want you to think about this, I want you to think you're protecting your family, yourself, and get into that aggressive stance. The second thing I see women make the most mistakes on is limp wristing any pistol. So whether you're shooting a full-size handgun or more of a compact handgun, or even something smaller, you really need to have a good high grip on the backstrap of this. So when I talk about limp wristing, if you're here and you don't have a lot of tension or a lot of grip pressure, the gun's going to recoil and all of that energy is going down your elbows and it can cause malfunctions. Where you see this happen is the gun will basically jam like this, maybe have a stovepipe, which means a piece of brass would be stuck. So really all of this tension, the limp wristing, is gonna come here. So when you're shooting, you wanna have a lot of pressure. This is just strong hand only right now, and make sure you're driving the gun. Not kind of here and not loose. The other thing you can make the mistake on too that I see women do is losing the grip. You're not high enough on this. And maybe you start shooting out strong, right? You're shooting a couple rounds, you start to lose your grip. You need to have this as flush with your hand as possible, okay? So limp wristing is really important not to do. Lock in those wrists and have your isosceles triangle, if that's your position, absorb that energy. If you're letting your wrist do the work, that's where the malfunctions are caused. Keep your wrist locked out and let the gun do its thing in recoil. The third thing that I see women make mistake on is not having enough grip pressure. You want both hands to have a nice even level of grip pressure, but really where you want to grip down harder is on your support hand. So if you're a right-handed shooter or left-handed shooter, I'm right-handed, so I'll show you this. You're going to have your support hand all the way up here on the slide. It might feel funky at first, but your thumb's basically pointed downrange. Your palm is covering up all of this that your strong hand can't, okay? So your thumb's pointed at the target, your grip's out. If I take my strong hand off, I just want you to see the grip pressure is solid, okay? Your fingers are all together. You're not having gaps. That's where I see a lot of women make mistakes on this hand, is having gaps or kind of loosening down here. And you know, there's different hand sizes, and that's the struggle point too. So when you grip a gun, if you're doing your thumbs kind of upward or further back, look where your pinky's kind of hanging off. You really don't have any grip pressure. This hand's doing nothing. So we want to have a good strong grip with our strong hand, but the weak hand is where we clamp down and have that good grip pressure. You want to have the tension more in your left hand, your support hand, than you do in your shooting hand. When you have too much grip tension on your strong hand, you can actually have trigger freeze and have more issues pulling the trigger because you have so much tension, right? Still want to grip the gun, but really clamp down with that support hand. So I'm going to demonstrate the wrong way to have a limp wrist, and then I'm going to show you a stronger wrist presentation when you're shooting. We might be able to cause a malfunction, so let's see. Okay. So I'm going to do this one-handed just to exaggerate the point of having a limp wrist and seeing what the gun does. Okay? That's really kicking the gun up high. All of that energy from the gun, the recoil, is going straight into my wrist. So I'm gonna do this now stronger and locking out my wrist, okay? So I'm able to drive the gun a little bit better in recoil. I'm not having all that energy basically sending the gun upward. I'm absorbing it through the wrist and locking it in. Of course, that's one-handed shooting. So we can do it now with strong hand and our weak hand on it. This is the limp wrist one. It's actually funny shooting wrong. I can feel the pain in my wrist from doing this incorrectly, and that's actually how I learned I was doing this wrong when I started out shooting pistols. Let's do it the right way. Way, way better. It's more natural, it's more comfortable, and the gun doesn't hurt as bad. And I want to tell you this, females, okay? It doesn't matter the size of the gun. You have the grip strength. You can manage this gun. It's comfortable to shoot. It might be a little bit more smaller, might have more recoil, but you can handle this with a proper grip. The fourth thing that I see women make mistakes on is anticipating recoil. So all of the things I've already taught about grip pressure, not limp wristing, is going to lead to you actually shooting better, because when you're limp wristing or you don't have the proper grip, you are getting a ton of recoil, right? So having a good grip and good grip pressure, you can actually relieve yourself of having that tension built up to basically fight the recoil. You know the gun is gonna go up. And so when I say anticipating recoil, what you're doing in the shot is you're basically driving the gun down. So before you shoot, when you pull the trigger, you're doing this. Whether it's low, whether maybe it's low left, you could even be pulling the gun to the right. All of this is anticipating the shot before it's even been fired. So when you're doing that, guess where the shot goes? Down, low left, or to the right. So what I want you to do is get comfortable pulling through the trigger and not basically anticipating the recoil or moving the gun. The only movement when you fire a pistol is pulling the trigger to the rear. Any other movement, whether it's in your wrists, your body, anything, is going to change your sight, your accuracy, and that's where we see a lot of women suffer. So make sure you're not anticipating the recoil, give it a go, and maybe breathe through the shots. You know, take your time, one trigger pull at a time, but I promise you, you can handle this. So I was doing all of the things wrong with anticipating the recoil, so I learned about dummy rounds or snap caps. Basically, these are fake plastic ammo that you can put in your magazines and load it with your live fire rounds. So what I do is I do this before I go to the range, so I don't know the sequence of the order. Maybe I'll do 3 live rounds, a dummy round, 2 more live rounds, and stick a dummy. That way, when you go shoot and you've got the live fire, as soon as that dummy round comes up, you see yourself anticipate the recoil and you're like, oh, I get it now. And so dummy rounds aren't really helpful in terms of doing those at home by themselves. It really helps when you're live firing and they're mixed in, you're like, that was my mistake. So you can really learn from snap caps or dummy rounds. So I'm just gonna dry fire, but pretend like we have this loaded up, we had our dummy rounds. When you go to shoot and you see, that's anticipating the recoil. That was a little bit of a low left shot. Maybe you've got too much trigger finger in, you pull the gun to the right. Maybe you're shooting, you got great sight alignment, you go straight down. You're trying to fight the recoil of the gun, right? So when I'm at home, I sit here and I dry fire, my perfect trigger pull. You're always gonna have movement because your body's moving, but when you have a good trigger pull and you sit at home and dry fire, when you go to the range, you're now a lot more trained and a lot more steady on the gun. Let's give it a go. Okay, now I'm gonna show you what not to do, what a lot of us do on anticipating the recoil, and see where the shots kind of go. Woo. Right, we're driving the gun, we're moving the gun. That movement is changing all of my shots. So when you get better with your grip pressure and your grip, your stance and everything like that, you really can get good at being consistent in your shooting, and that's where the dry fire and the dummy rounds really come in handy. The last thing I see women do is have a improper trigger pull. Now, every gun is different, right? You're going to have built-in safeties on the triggers, you're gonna have flat triggers, curved triggers, I could go on and on. Every gun is different. However, your trigger pull can be a consistent trigger pull across all these different platforms. What I mean by that, and I will dry fire this, is I want to shoot the gun in the perfectly middle of my pad of my finger, not on the first knuckle and not on the tip. I want the trigger right here in the mushy part of the pad of my finger. This is really important when doing this, and it's not something that you do with revolvers or on semi-autos and compact handguns. So let's dry fire. This is the incorrect way. If I'm too far over and you pull the trigger, that's where a lot of that movement comes because you have too much in there. Same thing with a little bit less. You're kind of pulling it in the opposite directions. So remember the pad of your finger, place that perfectly in the middle of the trigger finger, boom, okay? I'll show you the reset on that, coming off. it's consistent. You're not moving it over here and then moving it over here. You're consistent in your trigger press. And this is something I do at home, is just sit there and make sure that I'm ingraining in my brain where to pull the trigger and what I'm feeling. And again, there's so many different triggers with different firearms that you're going to have to dry fire it. And a good tip that I do to help women when they get a new pistol is learn it. Go home, dry fire it, take it apart, do repetition after repetition before even hitting the range. All right, I'm gonna show you the wrong way to do the trigger presses. First one up is going to be the knuckle trigger pull. So that's where people really get in there. They've got too much trigger, bad trigger press. The second one, we're gonna use a fingertip and see how inaccurate we can be if we don't have enough trigger finger. Not really comfortable. My finger almost had to come all the way out of the trigger guard, and that can cause a lot of issues too. So let's work on the middle, the perfect spot. The pad of the finger on the trigger, perfect trigger press. All day. So I like to work on that in dry fire, so when I come to the range in live fire, I see my results in practicing that trigger press. So you can see the trigger on this side. I'm gonna do this one hand only with the knuckle trigger pull first. Too much trigger finger. Now we're gonna have it on the tip of the finger, see how inaccurate we are. See, that's almost kind of pulling my joint out of socket almost, and it's really uncomfortable. Let's do this the correct way with a nice middle of a pad of our finger. Okay. Getting consistent. Harder to shoot one-handed, but that's how you do that properly. Thanks for watching my 5 tips for women to improve their pistol shooting ability.